Hi everyone, this is audap. Let's check out the Darius Cozmic Collection Console on Nintendo Switch. Now again, these titles were originally available only as a physical medium with the Cosmic Collection and then the Cosmic Collection Special Edition. The original Cosmic Collection contained a mixture of the arcade games and the console games, the standard edition, and then the Special Edition, which was much more expensive. I think it was for like $200. It also contained additional rare versions of Darius as it was released on the console. Now that this is available on the North American eShop, you can purchase them as separate collections. This console collection is probably the one that people are going to be more familiar with. It's going to contain lots of different versions that were available for home play, not only in North America but also in other territories as well. So this is going for $59.99. If you want the arcade version, which is a separate title, that is going for $44.99. As I stated for the arcade version, it is a premium price. They're asking for a lot, but at the same time, they probably are well aware that these games are they would be sort of difficult to sell as low-budget titles while still making a profit, and the audience for Darius, I think, is much smaller than maybe other classic shooter series, which is unfortunate because it's a really great series. So let's check out this version and all the games in here. There are obviously more games in here, which is why the price is a little bit higher as well. Okay, so we have Darius II, which is the Mega Drive version, then SAGAIA, which is the Genesis. The Master System version. I've never even seen this. Darius Twin for Famicom and Super Nintendo, and then Darius Force. I think I owned this one at some point in time. Supernova, this one as well. Darius Alpha, PC Engine, and then Darius Plus on PC Engine. And there we go, that's it. The manual's in HTML format. Oh, interesting. Is there... Oh, there's not like a multi-page manual like the arcade version. Interesting. So it's just the one page. Okay, well, let's start from the top. So this is Darius II, the Mega Drive version, one of several home conversions released for Darius II. In order to convert what was originally a two-screen arcade game to a single-screen format, all the arcade sprites had to be redrawn to be smaller, and the series' famously wide playing field had to be recreated for the different aspect ratio. Oh wow, they put some work into this. Although co-op play was removed from this port and some bosses were switched out, it otherwise admirably maintains the spirit and atmosphere of the original game. Yeah, interesting. Alright, so then let's go fit to screen. We'll turn the smoothing on. We'll turn off the backgrounds. Missile and bomb is... really? A and B? Okay. Good enough. A, C, automatic, B, automatic. Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's do it. I know, look at that frame rate. Well, it's the home version, though. And they spent, I didn't realize they spent that much time to redraw the sprites and make them smaller so you can fit more on it. That's actually a pretty clever way of going about it, too. But I tell you, when this came out, this was really, really impressive. The multi-layer scrolling, the music was actually nothing, or it was more than just the bleep bloop mess that was a lot of Mega Drive and Genesis games were suffering from. Very, very impressive. Not the experience of the arcade, obviously, but it's pretty good considering. Of course, we don't have our famous tuna sashimi line, so this circle sucks. I'm kidding. Back in these days, I really appreciated this game. You know, think of all the shmups that were on the original Nintendo. I mean, they had nothing on this. You know, there's such a graphical leap if you were going from regular Nintendo to Genesis. I think it's what captivated a lot of audiences in North America. You know, we didn't get the PC Engine for quite a while, so this was like really the next best competitor to the original Nintendo. Whereas Japan got the PC Engine, you know, much earlier than us, so probably wasn't that big of a deal to have these kind of graphics. Oh boy. 90s clap sounds. Okay. Well, it brings back a lot of memories. Don't worry, I'm not good at this game either, like all the other games, which I'm not good at. So we'll definitely get to see them all. I'd say the home versions of these games were, you know, significantly easier than the arcade versions. Really for a variety of reasons, yeah, just as I died. For a variety of reasons. The home market obviously had to, was much different than the arcade market. And developers knew that. In some cases, the games were more challenging for the home market. But not in this case. Ah, bitch. That's cool. A lot for it continues. But limited credits. That's how they kept you. That's how they kept the game fresh. Since you weren't just plugging quarters in it all the time. Otherwise, you know, kids would come home from this game, beat it with infinite continues, and then, you know, cry to their parents or want to return it. All right, let's take a look at the. Let's take a look at the Genesis version. See, the North American release of the Mega Drive Darius II port, some of the cheats were disabled in this version. Oh, being jerks to us who owned a Genesis, huh? A long time ago, the planet of Darius went into ruin, but Procol and Tia of the Darius gave birth to a new planet. And after the passing of many centuries, Procol Jr. and they discovered the radio broadcast. They board the Silverhawk, preparing to defeat the evil force and journey to the galaxy. Hey, give me time to read that. What the hell? Jerks. Yeah, good enough. Let's do it. So, they basically just disabled some of the cheats. Maybe they found too many of the Japanese audiences were cheating their way through it, beating it too quickly. I could see that. still a great song, even though it's, you know, obviously not the same fidelity as the arcade version. It's a really decent rendering of it. No mention of sashimi though, so can't have it all. It's such an upbeat song. Yeah. I know. It's an invading force of sea creatures getting you back for all those fish tacos you ate. That's... Ah, there's the shield. Oh my goodness. Hyper Sting. Oh, very popular Mega Drive effect. I don't know, I wish they would have kept the name the same. I mean, I think the Mega Drive sounds cooler than Genesis, but maybe other people feel differently. Yeah. Oh boy, I did even worse. No surprises there. Okay, let's go through these games here. All right, the Master System version, oh boy. A home conversion of Darius II that was primarily released in Europe and was never sold in Japan. Even in the wake of 16-bit games consoles such as the Mega Drive and Super Famicom, the 8-bit game market in Europe remained strong for some time. As a result, games for the Sega Master System such as this continued to be released there for a longer period of time than its Japanese home territory. So they didn't even make it for their own territory. That's interesting, huh? Yeah, this will be really interesting. I imagine, well, my expectations will be low. So let's see. It's the same options. I know. I associate all these sounds with Phantasy Star. You know what I mean? Since that's really the only game I played a lot of on the Master System. No, I never owned this this console. And of course, the you know, all the games are incredibly expensive if you want to be a physical collector. I mean, the only good thing is that there aren't as many games as, you know, say the classic Nintendo or the Super Nintendo, but they're all like super expensive. And you know, the console reliability is not super high, so a lot of consoles don't even work. You know, much like the Dreamcast, you know, finding working systems is challenging. I mean, honestly, it's super impressive considering the game and you know, the original source material. I certainly would have been happy with this if I owned a Master System. You know, and I hadn't invested in the Genesis or the Mega Drive. I mean, they even got the wavy backgrounds in there somehow. I don't know. Yeah, it's crazy. Well, obviously, the frame rate suffers, but, you know, God, yeah. It wasn't, it was a higher spec system than the original Nintendo, certainly. So the games look better, but unfortunately the sound suffered, as I don't think it features as many channels. I don't know, I mean, God, the Master System games never sounded anywhere near as good as the original Nintendo games. Yeah. Well, that's tough. Oh, we actually have a boss battle. We didn't even get that in the Mega Drive version. Boy, it takes a while to get them. Oh, these are just the mini bosses. Okay, I thought it was a regular boss. Okay, so they just restructured the game a little bit. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's an impressive port. Yeah, I mean, certainly as a, if I owned a Master System, I mean, that would have been an awesome version. Alright, Darius Twin. I am pretty sure I own this on Super Nintendo. Well, this is the Super Famicom version. The Darius series, first original entry for home consoles, released in 1991 for the Super Famicom. Although it uses the two-screen Darius II as a base, its design takes advantage of the single-screen format inherent to consumer TVs. Released just 4 months after the Super Famicom launched in Japan and was becoming a big sensation. In addition to existing fans, it also played a wide swath of people who had no experience with the original arcade games. Yeah, no, I remember enjoying it. Although I also remember thinking at the time that it was inferior to the arcade games. So you could have to tell it was a lower spec game than what we were using in the arcades. But on Super Nintendo, for a game that was so close to launch, you know, really, it was a great game to have. I know, he's so green now. Oh boy, listen to that slap bass. Going crazy. His thumb's about to fall off. Yeah, I think we'll leave that as it should be. I do think it's funny, even after all these years, that Super Nintendo configuration, you know, the controller on the left thumb and the diamond configuration for the buttons and the two trigger buttons on the top, that still survived up until this day. It's pretty amazing. Ah, great music. And again, it really differentiates itself from the Mega Drive version. I mean, you know, Mega Drive SAGAIA was really good. Oh wow, I'm terrible. But you can tell this is you know, quite a large graphic leap. All right, well, let's try this just one more time. I feel that doesn't accurately represent my skill level, or maybe it does represent my skill level too much. Oh yeah, it does. I'm just not good at this. Oh, you really do ram me. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay, well, let's check out the North American version. Gosh, was it always that hard? Maybe. The localized version of Darius Twin produced for foreign markets, while the original Japanese version unfortunately featured compromised audio quality, resorting to monaural sound due to limited ROM capacity on the cartridge. This release upgrades the game to stereo quality, making it the definitive version. Well, I had no idea. I wasn't really paying attention to the sound quality. I just know that the original composition sounded really good. Oh, yeah, wow. Oh, you can already tell just just from the start that it's stereo. Oh, that's interesting. So the original Nintendo was probably only, or the Famicom version was probably only on a 2 meg cart then. I wonder if this was like a 4 meg cart, or maybe it was 512K or 256, I don't know. I'd have to look it up. I didn't realize it was that small of a cartridge. But you know, it was basically a launch game, or within the launch window, as we like to say nowadays. Oh yeah, boy, they really took advantage of the stereo sound. Wow. That's quite a difference. Yeah, it's very rare that the North American version is better than the original Japanese release. Usually they do a lot of nipping and tucking from Japanese releases. You know, difficulty adjustment, you know, removing a levels or changing your characters. So it's nice to see that we actually got one that was, you know, a better release. Must be that stereo music's making me do better. Man, I wish Nintendo would have released their system with just a bit more of a clock speed on the main CPU. I mean, it really was a good system. It just suffered from so much, so many frame rate issues. You know, so many games did. Even the initial launch of games. You know, all hindsight, it would have made the system more expensive, but I think it would have been worth it, really. You know, we get some nice parallax here, which was not all that common on the Super Nintendo. Or I mean, it was common, but at the price of the game's performance. Whereas the you know, the PC Engine, you know, only had single plane scrolling, but high detail and fast speed. Kaloba. Ah, such a great game. Man. A lot of memories of this game. Again, you know, I never felt it was better than the original Darius, but at least it gave us a good Darius experience. But at the time, man, I just wish I had that original Darius release. We just never got it in North America, not on any consoles on that region. Whereas there were, you know, several ports of the original Darius on various consoles for the Japanese market. And at the time, I hadn't equated SAGAIA being Darius II being part of the same series because the name was so different. I just thought it was another game that was like Darius that had nothing to do with the franchise. Emperor Fossil and Queen Fossil. And we beat up the king in the first game, so. It's cool to have, you know, two big bosses. You know, again, if you think of gaming, if you just came fresh off of the original Nintendo, I mean, this was quite a revolution. Even if you were coming from the Mega Drive, I think there were definitely you definitely see and hear differences from the two systems. They both had pluses and minuses. Darius Force, a home console original entry. Darius Force breaks with what had been series tradition up until that point, in featuring bosses that go beyond the typical roster of ones based on marine biology, including ones inspired by bacteria, dinosaurs, and more. A point the back of the box was keen to point out to players. The experimental spirit extended to the gameplay itself as well. Players able to pilot one of several ships, each with different capabilities, as well as stages whose geography could change, among other things. Yeah, I think I imported this, and I think I wasn't happy with it. I felt that it was too different, if I remember right. But that being said, I still played the crap out of it. Back then, importing, well, it was super expensive, but all you had to do was like, you know, pull the tabs out of the Japanese cartridges. It had two little tabs that prevented you from putting it into a US system, but you just had to rip them off, and then you could play it on your American system. Yeah, that was their version of region locking, you know, some physical tabs back in those days. They got more sophisticated later on, of course, and more so even now. You know, so that's always been a thing, you know, region locking. You know, for the original Nintendo and the Super, and the Nintendo, you know, they're physically different size cartridges. So they managed to get region locking done that way as well. Or maybe I own Supernova, maybe I own the North American release. A long time has passed since the war with Belzer. And the names of those heroic warriors have long been forgotten. Ah, well, that's a shame. On this day, history is about to repeat itself. Yeah, so dramatic for a shmup, huh? It's a saga of war and man's perpetual fight for survival. What do we got here? We'll leave it the way it is. Listen to that heartbeat. So dramatic. Yeah, that's right. So I think I got Supernova. I got the North American release. Had that. I certainly remember that cool effect that they have for the first stage. Oh, that's right. Okay. I forgot I can hit both buttons at once. Oh no, you can only do one at a time. You do Vulcan or missile, but not missile and Vulcan. Which is certainly different than the series was before. Oh, Jesus. Yeah, I gotta do real well here. I remember that, thinking that this series had it definitely played to the Super Nintendo's strengths, and that it performed better, but it was also performed very, very slowly. I mean, the game kind of inches along. Okay, well, yeah, let's do that again. That was embarrassing. Let's go for this one. Still great music. It's definitely, you can tell it's a slower paced game. Ah, son of a bitch. Oh, man. Ah. I just don't know the patterns well enough. Ah! Shoot. I wish I was shooting. Man. Boy, you really forget how difficult these old games were. Especially since there's not a lot of rapid fire. I know I made the same mistake. It's not like a real fast rapid fire. Okay, let's check out Supernova. That's the one I'm more familiar with. Although I think they're basically the same game. The localized international version of Darius Force, some of the boss names were changed in this release. Oh, okay, so it's not too much different. Just change the names to probably match the North American market. I'm sure that, game translations, certainly back in these days, were sometimes very, very iffy. Sometimes well-intentioned, sometimes incredibly lazy. It really just depended on who the publisher was and how good the local team was. That's why it was a big deal when Working Designs came along as a publisher who were willing to do games which were passed over by the original developers and released games in North America, although they definitely had very, very loose interpretations of how to translate their games. They're always trying to capture the spirit of a game, but now we play those games and realize that they were super cringy, and probably they should have just went about it a little bit more straightforward. Ah, that's right. It allows us to throw enemies behind you. Changed it to Supernova. What's wrong with calling it Darius Force? I guess they didn't feel that the name Darius was a big enough sell. Not enough people recognize the franchise. Or it could have been just like the super laziness of a translation team. Darius isn't a cool enough name. Okay. Supernova isn't necessarily any more cooler. Or more cool. I don't know. Ugh, it's like asteroid hell. My goodness. Huge battleship. Biohazard is approaching fast. Not Resident Evil. That didn't come for many, many years later. Yeah, you can tell they're trying to limit the number of sprites on the screen so that it wouldn't experience lots of frame drops. I mean, it's an intelligent game. It's an intelligent design for a game to know that you're making it for the limits of the Super Nintendo or the Super Famicom. It does make it sort of feel like it's a little sluggish, even though it's designed to run like this, and certainly compared to the other games in the series. Scaling. So fancy. Hardware superiority. Oh boy. That's a hard time with this game. Ah, back to the pea shooter. Ah, damn. All right, Darius Alpha. A game produced in extremely limited numbers that wasn't made for sale. It was primarily available via a special campaign for purchasers of Darius Plus, through which 800 people were able to obtain a copy. It features a boss rush mode that pits players against the 16 bosses from Darius Plus, and a 4-minute time trial mode. So yeah, incredibly, incredibly rare game. Thankfully preserved in digital form. Which is, this is one of the games that you would have gotten if you purchased the Darius Cozmic Collection Special Edition, you know, the $200 version that was available in Japan. But thankfully, we don't have to pay that much, although we're certainly not getting away with getting any of this stuff cheap either. And considering it's just basically like a carnival mode, you know, a boss rush mode, you know, as far as a game goes, it's not that big a deal from a game perspective, but from a collector's perspective, it is a big deal, right? It's so few copies, you know, limited number of copies. You know, only the most elite of gamers have this as a physical edition. And of the 800 copies, I don't think they've accounted for all 800. I think probably some were, you know, lost due to time, thrown away, whatever, you know. But you know, it was better just to own the Darius Plus. You get the full game. And you know, even more rare if you have the Super Graphics version, which you know, I always wanted to attain. May still be on my list someday to get one of those systems. But of course, incredibly expensive. and finding a working one is tough. Which is why the release of the PC Engine Mini and the TurboGrafx Mini, I mean, that's very exciting because you get to play some of those games. But apparently those systems do have some lag issues. Maybe they'll fix it by the time it makes a North American release towards the end of the year. We'll see. I don't know. It might be the inherent nature of the hardware and the emulator that they use where they aren't able to improve the performance any. I hope that's not the case. And look how fast everything's moving compared to like Supernova. But that was, obviously that was typical of the PC Engine games. They're very, very fast-moving games. But obviously, if you didn't like this genre that much, then the PC Engine had a large variety of games. I think a lot of people remember them for the shmups. Wow, that's difficult. I don't think I'll ever be any good at that. Yeah, I also love the credit song. There's not much to it, but it's so peaceful, Alright, so there are other modes in that, of course, too, but again, I'm going to have a video for each of these titles, and we'll go through each of those titles individually. But for now, we're just going to cover everything all at once. Just a brief look at everything. Darius Plus. Okay, a downgraded version of sorts of Super Darius. Whereas that game was previously released for the PC Engine CD-ROM 2 and contained 26 bosses, this game was released as a Hue card and featured a more modest 16 bosses. Still, I would have loved to have owned this game back in the day, Start the Super Graphics mode. If this is set to on, graphics will flicker less. Oh, that's right. I forgot it. It was a dual mode game. Wow, it's crazy to think about. Let's see, which one was Turbo? Turbo was Y, right? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you can see they sort of cut off the screen to fit on a single screen, so your ship actually doesn't. Some of your ships actually cut off there. But now the sprites themselves are much larger because they crammed it all on one screen, and they didn't do the scaling option like they did with SAGAIA on the Mega Drive and the Genesis. So you're still having the same relative size sprites, but just on one screen. I mean, for my money, I have more memories of the arcade versions, obviously, because being in North America, I never got to experience a lot of these home console ports. So I'm more inclined for folks to experience the arcade version of these ports. I think you'll probably have a better time with the arcade versions, but obviously, if you have more memories of the home versions, if you're able to enjoy the home versions, then maybe this is the better collection for you. There's certainly more games on this collection than the arcade version, than the arcade release. But I don't think that you should miss out on either one. I think they're both good sets of releases. It is a shame that they had to break these releases up, But I think they also knew that there were people that maybe didn't want the home versions. So I totally understand why they did it. Still would have been nice to have a special edition with all the games in one collection instead of separated it out. And thankfully, not as the $200 special edition. You're paying half the price for the digital versions, which is not necessarily cheap, but certainly cheaper than number one, obtaining the special edition, and number two, paying all the shipping and all the other costs involved if you don't live in that territory. So there you go. That was the Darius Cozmic Collection. This is the console version. Again, these are sold as separate titles. The arcade version featuring all the arcade games in the Cozmic Collection, which was available as physical media, and then this version, which features all the console games from that Cozmic Collection, again, available on physical media. They have split up the releases for understandable reasons. They are not value priced at all. You are paying full price for these titles, so with the arcade version being $44.99 and this version, the console version, being $59.99. Personally, I think it's worth it to me. I have a lot of memories of Darius, and I really like the series as a whole. I can understand if you don't like it, and maybe there's some debate on whether or not the value is really there. But the audience is limited. The number of people that remember Darius and play Darius in any of its incarnations is much lower. So I could see why they needed to increase the price and make it a premium price. Otherwise, there would be no profit in these, and we'd forever, have these relegated to home emulation. And while emulation is very, very good, oftentimes you'd have unreliable hardware, people with different configurations, and so the experience is quite a bit different. So I am glad that these made its way over onto the Switch, where you can play these on the go in portable mode. I still would suggest these to folks. I think there's still some good value in there. Yeah, I would definitely check it out, but it's not cheap, and just bear that in mind. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed watching. I will see you at the next stream.